Playing with Power MTG. Powerful cards, powerful formats. Be sure to check out Dragon Shield for all of the best accessories to protect your decks. TCG Player for cards at great prices while supporting local game stores. And Patreon, where you get awesome benefits for your direct support. 2022 is here. We are so glad to be back, and we have all kinds of awesome announcements. Our Mox Pearl tier is back. If you ever wanted to be on an episode, consider signing up to this tier and show off your CEDH skills. Our Patreon Discord CEDH Webcam League is in full swing this month. We are giving away $1,000 in cash prizes. All you have to do is sign up to Patreon at any tier to gain access. Good luck! We are now streaming on Twitch. Check us out every Wednesday evening for games and much more. If you sub to Twitch, you'll get additional perks like Discord access and the ability to play in our league. In February, we are hosting a CEDH tournament on our Discord. It will be 100% proxy friendly, and there is over $1,200 in cash prizes. Stay tuned for more info. We wanted to thank all of the players that came to our table during MTG Vegas last year. We had an amazing time with you all. We will be attending more events as they safely come throughout the year, so stay tuned to our social media to stay up to date. Now, let's start out by showcasing our fighters this evening. First, we have Jim from the Spike Feeders piloting the partner pair of Sakashima of 1,000 Faces and Tymna the Weaver. Better known as Bears and Cars, this list seeks to control the board with hate bears and use those creatures to crew vehicles. Be sure to check out Jim on the Spike Feeders YouTube channel and on social media. Jim's opening hand contains a Vidalcan Shackles, Tocatli Honor Guard, Dark Confidant, Felwar Stone, Mental Misstep, Vault of Whispers, and an Urza Saga. Next, we have Sean piloting the partner pair of Tymna the Weaver and Kraum Ludovic's Opus. Better known as Blue Farm, this deck seeks to utilize its commander to draw cards quickly and close out the game with a Thassa's Oracle. Sean's opening hand contains a Talisman of Indulgence, Force of Will, Volcanic Island, Grim Hireling, Flooded Strand, Rhystic Study, and a Gamble. After that, we have Tanner piloting the partner pair of Tymna the Weaver and Thrasios Triton Hero. This infinite mana deck looks to create infinite mana and draw cards through Thrasios. Tanner's opening hand contains a Gemstone Caverns, Neoform, Swan Song, Esper Sentinel, Finehorn Elves, Marsh Flats, and a Tropical Island. Finally, we have Zach piloting Godo Bandit Warlord. This deck seeks to cast Godo, fetch up Helm of the Host, and produce infinite attack steps. Zach's opening hand contains 2 Snow-Covered Mountains, Mouth of Ronan, Bergi God of Storytelling, Jeweled Lotus, Mox Diamond, and a Tybalt's Trickery. Without further ado, let's begin this tattletale torrent of trials and tribulations. Jim won the Flip It or Rip It challenge, rest in peace Blood Moon, and gets to start us off. But Tanner has a pre-game action and puts Gemstone Caverns onto the battlefield, exiling Tropical Island. Jim draws a card for turn and plays an Urza Saga, getting its first counter. He passes. Sean draws a card for turn and plays a Volcanic Island. He casts Gamble. He fetches up a card into his hand, shuffles, and then randomly discards a Talisman of Indulgence. He casts a Mana Crypt and ships the turn. Tanner draws and plays a Hallowed Fountain into play untapped, paying 2 life. He casts Esper Sentinel. In response, Jim pays 2 life to cast Mental Misstep, targeting Sentinel. In response, Tanner casts Swan Song, countering Misstep. Jim creates a 2/2 bird, Sentinel resolves, and Tanner passes the turn. Zach draws and plays a Snow-Covered Mountain. He casts Mox Diamond. Esper Sentinel triggers, and Tanner draws a card. Diamond resolves, and Zach discards a land. He casts Cryptic Trilobite, where X equals 1. He ships the turn to Jim. Jim draws, and in his first main phase, Urza Saga gets another counter. He plays a Vault of Whispers for turn. He casts Kraum Mox. Sentinel triggers, and Tanner draws. Kraum Mox resolves, and Jim imprints Hushwing Griff. He moves to combat and attacks Sean with his bird. Sean takes it, and Jim passes. During his upkeep, Sean wins his Mana Crypt roll. He draws and plays an Underground Sea. He casts a Lotus Petal. He casts his commander, Kraum Ludovic's Opus. He moves to combat and attacks Zach with Kraum. Zach takes it, and with nothing else, Sean passes. Tanner draws and plays a command tower. He casts his commander, Tymna the Weaver. He moves to combat and attacks Sean with Esper. Sean takes it, and in his second main phase, Tanner pays 1 life and draws 1 through Tymna. Finished up, Tanner ships the turn to Zach. Zach draws and plays a Snow-Covered Mountain. He casts Bergi, God of Storytelling. He casts a Jeweled Lotus, adding a red through Bergi. Kraum and Esper Sentinel trigger, and both players draw. He uses his red floating and then activates his Cryptic Trilobite, giving it another +1/+1 counter. Zach passes the turn to Jim. At the end of Zach's turn, Jim activates Urza Saga, creating a Construct token. Jim draws, and in his first main phase, Urza Saga gets its final counter. Jim sacrifices it and fetches up a Mox Opal onto the battlefield. He plays an Arid Mesa. He cracks it, pays a life, and fetches up a Tundra onto the battlefield. He moves to combat and attacks Sean with everything. Sean takes it, and in Jim's second main phase, he casts a Dark Confidant. He casts a Tocatli Honor Guard. Zach sighs, and Jim gives the turn to Sean. During his upkeep, Sean loses his mana crypt roll and takes 3 damage. He draws and plays a Flooded Strand. He cracks it, pays a life, and fetches up a scrubland onto the battlefield. He casts Grim Hireling. He moves to combat and attacks Tanner with Kraum. Tanner takes it, Grim Hireling triggers, and Sean creates 2 treasures. In his second main phase, Sean activates Grim Hireling, sacrificing treasures, targeting Tanner's Esper Sentinel, killing it. Finished up, Sean ships the turn. Tanner draws and plays an Undergrowth Stadium. He casts Drannith Magistrate. He passes. Zach draws and plays a Cavern of Souls, naming Human as it enters. He moves to combat and attacks Tanner with Bergie. Tanner takes it, and in his second main phase, Zach casts Ruby Medallion. Zach gives the turn to Jim. During his upkeep, Jim reveals a City of Brass through Dark Confidant. He draws and plays City of Brass. He casts Felwar Stone. He casts Vidalcan Shackles. He attacks Sean with a bird and a construct token. Sean takes it, and Jim passes. During his upkeep, Sean wins his mana crypt roll. He draws and moves to combat. In response, Tanner casts Assassin's Trophy, targeting Kraum. In response, Sean casts Spell Pierce, countering Trophy. He attacks Tanner with Kraum and Zach with Grim Hireling. They both take it, Grim Hireling triggers, and Sean creates 4 treasures. In his second main phase, he plays a Scalding Tarn for turn. He cracks it, pays a life, and fetches up a Tundra onto the battlefield. He activates Grim Hireling, killing Jim's 2/2 bird. He casts Rhystic Study. Sean gives the turn to Tanner. Tanner draws and plays a Verdant Catacombs. He moves to combat and attacks Sean with Tymna. Sean takes it, and in his second main phase, Tanner pays 1 and draws 1 through Tymna. He passes. At the end of Tanner's turn, Zach activates Trilobite, giving it a +1/+1 counter. Zach draws and casts Wheel of Fortune. Bergie and Rhystic trigger, Zach adds a red, and Sean draws a card. In response, Tanner cracks his Verdant Catacombs, pays a life, and fetches up an Underground Sea onto the battlefield. He casts Abrupt Decay, targeting Vidalcan Shackles. Wheel resolves, and everyone discards their hand and draws 7. Zach casts Chrome Mox, paying for Rhystic. Kraum triggers, and Sean draws. Chrome Mox resolves, and Zach imprints Rite of Flame. He casts a Jeweled Amulet, paying for Rhystic. Bergie triggers, adding a red. He casts Expedition Map, paying for Rhystic, and adding a red through Bergie. He uses his Trilobite to help activate Expedition Map, sacrificing it and fetching up a Command Beacon into his hand. He plays Command Beacon. He immediately cracks it to put Godo, Bandit Warlord, into his hand. He casts Godo, Bandit Warlord. He pays the Rhystic tax and adds a red mana through Bergie. Godo enters, but doesn't trigger due to Tocatli Honor Guard. Dismayed, Zach puts a charge counter on his Jeweled Amulet and then moves to combat. He attacks Sean with Bergie and Trilobite. Sean takes the damage, and Zach sadly passes the turn. During his upkeep, Jim reveals a Plains through Dark Confidant. He draws and plays a Godless Shrine into play untapped, paying 2 life. He moves to combat and attacks Zach with his Construct. Zach takes it, and in his second main phase, Jim casts Kuranos, Hound of Athreos. He taps the City of Brass to cast Smothering Tithe. Kraum and Rhystic trigger, and both draw a card. Tithe resolves, the table sighs, and Jim gives the turn to Sean. During his upkeep, Sean wins his mana crypt roll. He draws, Smothering Tithe triggers, and Sean pays 2. He plays a Morphic Pool. He moves to combat and attacks Zach with Kraum and Tanner with the Hireling. They both take it, Grim triggers, and Sean creates 4 treasures. In his second main phase, he casts Reign of Filth. He sacrifices a Scrubland to add a black. He activates Grim Hireling, giving Tocatli -3/-3, killing it. He casts Witchclaw Talisman. He sacks Morphic Pool, adding a black. He activates Witchclaw, fetching up a card into his hand and giving Witchclaw to Jim. He casts Thassa's Oracle. It enters, and with the trigger on the stack, Sean sacks his Tundra and adds another black. He casts Demonic Consultation. In response, Tanner casts Force of Will, exiling a blue card, paying 1 life, and paying for Rhystic. In response, Sean casts Swan Song. Force of Will is countered, Tanner creates a bird, and Demonic Consultation resolves. Sean exiles his entire library. Thassa's Oracle's trigger resolves, and Sean wins the game. Ladies and gentlemen, what a fun game at MTG Vegas. Congrats to Sean on his well-fought victory. We couldn't be happier to have played games with the friends we made in Vegas. The most valuable card in tonight's game goes to Grim Hireling. Turn after turn, Grim Hireling was able to produce surprising amounts of mana and served as spot removal for the key pieces that kept Sean from winning. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode. Tune in next time when we duke it out to see who will be king of the competitive EDH table. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.